And okay.
This meeting is being recorded, and I call the meeting to order. All
Thank
those in
you.
favor? Second. Okay.
And Kari here.
Yep. Roll call.
Wendy.
Connie here. Sorry.
Wendy here.
Thank you. All right, so there's 3 of us here, and Anne is absent at the moment. But we have a quorum. Okay. All right, so if I may, Madam Chair, regarding the re-precincting, yesterday, Jill Moonheron, who can't join us today, so I'm going to attempt to show the map. And I met with Terry Ackerman to go over some of the precinct questions that had arisen around the Canantum area. And I'm going to share my screen. See if I can do that. Let's see. Too many screens here. All right. Can you see this? Can you see that I am zooming in right now on a screen?
Yeah.
Can you see that? Okay. So we talked about precinct 4, which is here in green. And specifically this area here that Terry had raised questions about and concerns at the select board meeting on last Monday. So the numbers inside of these areas are these are census blocks, and these are the numbers of residents according to the federal census in each census block. And so what we had attempted to do was to move all of the area to the river over to precinct 3. That includes the area with the number 139, 122, 32, and 82. And that unfortunately increased the number of residents in precinct 3, which is in the purple, to above 4,000. So the only other alternative that moves most of the neighborhood leaves Oxbow Road in precinct 3 and puts the rest of this neighborhood in precinct 4. Does that make sense to everyone?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so the other thing that was the question for precinct 4. And we also talked about polling locations, and because, you know, in looking at precinct 4's polling location currently is at Ripley School, which is not in the middle of the precinct in any way. And so we thought looking at other locations closer to the center of town would be a more feasible option for residents who live there. Precinct 5 is currently, we have talked about precinct 5 voting at the Hunt Gym. And that's primarily because Everett Street and the housing along there, they live across from the Hunt Gym, and they had some issues with difficulty making it to the polls when they were formerly in precinct 1, and precinct 1 voted at Kai's Road. So I would very much like to have precinct 5 remain at the Hunt Gym. And one other possibility we talked about was the Armory for voting.
Yes.
And that sounded very appealing, but I don't know if that is a viable option at this point. The other thing we can look at is the townhouse, which is here. And so the other thing that we talked about, the other area that we talked about with Terry that Matt had raised some concern about was here over in precinct 2 and precinct 1, where we have these residents here who have formerly voted at Harvey Wheeler because they were part of precinct 2, and now they're part of precinct 1, and they're having to go to Kai's Road to vote. And so what we tried to do was bring the area, this entire area here, where the number 243 comes in, this is one area, and unfortunately it covers 243 people, and it extends all the way down here and all the way up here. And I can't move this out of the way, I'm afraid. And then we have these areas that are separate precinct blocks, 51, 48, 28, 32, and 38. So when we attempted to move all of this area over to precinct 2, precinct 2 was over 4,000 residents. The problem with precinct 2 figuring out how to move the line between precinct 2 and precinct 1 is that we can't use precinct 3 in the scenario where we could otherwise, if we didn't have split districts now, where precincts 3 and 4, and you can see it from the green line, precincts 3 and 4 are in the 13th Middlesex district. Precincts 1, 2, and 5 are in the 14th Middlesex district. This is the result of the state's redistricting. Because they used our 2010 precinct lines, we are confined, unless we want to have split precincts, we are confined to working with precincts 1, 2, and 5 and trying to figure out the lines as best as we can between these 3 precincts and their polling locations, and then working between precincts 3 and 4 without going outside of these green lines. It's very challenging, and it's not what we had initially drawn at all, but it's what the reality has become. So what we found, going back to the line between precincts 1 and 2, the only move that we could make was here moving 51 and 48 residents. This is Crabtree and what is the other road? Bayberry, moving these 2 blocks, but it doesn't allow people who live on the outside of these blocks to move over to precinct 2. So it would only be the partial of these roads. So we could move these 2 into precinct 2 or just leave these in precinct 1. And obviously when I say we could, we could propose this to the select board. If we looked at moving precinct 1 closer to the center, the only way we can do that, because precinct 2 we're really locked in, and precinct 2 is already near the 4,000 resident maximum, is moving precincts 1 and 5 around. But I'm afraid that if we move precinct 1 closer here, we'd end up moving precinct 5 closer to 2, and it would it would look really, it would be a strange looking precinct. They both vote in or near Concord Center. So it really doesn't change the polling locations as far as which precinct they're in. And they would get the same ballot type. That's between 5 and 1. So this is, this map represents a slight change to what the select board saw, but not as much change as we had hoped based on the numbers. But this is what we have. And with that, I will open it to questions or thoughts.
Can I speak?
Wendy, who would you like to recognize? Susan Clark would like to speak.
Susan, go ahead. And then Henry. Susan first.
This is quite educational to drop into this much of it. I'm here because I live in Canantum, and we live on the southern border of the town and we vote on the northern border. And this has made a little more sense to me now looking at what you're trying to deal with. But the frustration of having to drive to Bedford to vote past 2 polling places is substantial. It really, I find it surprisingly irritating. I would love to see us be able to, I'd love to be able to see us vote a little closer to where we live. It's hard for people who don't drive because they have to arrange a much longer drive, but I don't know how you work this out given all the constraints you're dealing with. This is a crazy situation.
Yeah, but we certainly understand that your desire to have the polling location close. Henry, I think your voice filter is doing that thing again. No, it's still the same. Can't understand you, Henry. Sorry. Henry has, a few people have this happen. Their voice filters speed up their voice and then they
Yes.
have to log off and come back in.
Come back in.
And I know he had a comment to what Ms. Clark was saying.
Right, yes. Susan, if I could just speak, because the Board of Registrars in Kari we have been at this since about the 24th of June. And unfortunately, and I hear what you're saying, is that we don't have enough municipal buildings in this town to move things closer. I live in the far high left corner near Spencer Brook of just precinct 5. And I go into town and I understand what you're talking about. And it's very unfortunate. And yet the upside to precinct 4 is once you're there, it's, if I can, shed some light on that, it's there's plenty of parking and it's a very easy in and easy out precinct, all one floor, very easy to get in, one to get out.
Well, I understand that, but we drive by 2 polling places, which just adds to the sense of
Right.
neglect. I don't know. I assume it's not malice. Looking
No.
at precinct 4, it makes it more obvious, but we're right down in the bottom corner there. Anyway,
Mhm.
I just wanted
Yeah.
to express that
No,
frustration
absolutely.
because I'm speaking for a large number of neighbors.
Yes.
Yeah. And
But-
I'm sorry, Henry, did you have something to say?
Oh, I didn't want to interrupt after she's finished. And can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yes.
thank you.
Go ahead, Henry.
As far as polling places go, is the library a possibility?
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
It's
Could it be?
another public space that presumably is accessible, that's in the center of town. And if there are questions about the armory, which is probably a long shot at this point, especially since we're looking for a long-term commitment on that. why not consider the library, which is a public space and should be accessible and is a very short walk from the Hunt Gym. Going back to a question I asked a long time ago, and I'm sure you've answered it, so I may be just spinning my wheels here. We have no official is elected by precinct in our town. Therefore, why are we required? I mean, what is the source of the requirement that we have 5 precincts and that they be of equal size? And if we could have a different number of precincts, might that not help solve the problem? Since nobody gets elected by precinct anyway, why can't we have one precinct which would be in the representative district 13 and the second precinct in 14 and be done with it? And then just have different polling places that were not necessarily tied to any particular precinct.
Well, that's in the state law.
Now,
And
we have, that there is a specified size for a precinct?
Yes,
So it must be, regardless of the size of the town, we must have, well, I thought the only
it
requirement,
depends on the size of the town. I think that there is a minimum threshold that a town has to reach in order to have more than one precinct. But many towns gained precincts this year because of the federal census.
well, if that's a requirement, then we're stuck with it.
Yes.
Especially if the size is dictated rather than
Yes,
requirement that they not vary more than 5% from each other.
yeah, it's the size and then the variance. So, yeah. We have,
And so we could not have 6 precincts if we wanted to.
I think we could have 6 precincts if we wanted to, because there's no minimum. There is a maximum of 4,000.
Okay, well, I mean, it may be very late in the game to think about something like that. Maybe the only constructive suggestion I can make is that we consider the library for a polling place.
Okay. Okay.
Has come before this, so I don't know why the polling places that we have aren't useful.
Yes,
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt, but Ann Fortier, one of our registrars, has entered the meeting. She entered a short while ago, so I just wanted to acknowledge that.
thank you.
Thanks.
Is that Carlin raising her hand?
Yes.
Yes, Carlin, go ahead.
Thank you, Wendy. This is a very confusing matter, and I'm not the only one who's going to be confused, but I want to let you know that on behalf of the League of Women Voters, we'd like to do a video of this process with Kari in it and with Wendy as the chair being interviewed at the new, in front of the new clerk's office. Once the dust settles and you figure out, okay, here are the precincts, here's where you're going to go vote. It'll be 2 short videos, about 2.5 to 3 minutes each. Kari, you and I have done something like this before. But
That's
one
a
of them
great
is going
idea.
to be, where do I vote? And the second one's going to be what's going to be on the ballot. And that second one is going to be a prep for the special town meeting and the special town election. Kari, you and I can talk offline about the timing of when you want to do this, but we'd love to do it if you and Wendy in particular are interested in being on camera. This would be a league video. It would be posted on the Minuteman Media Network YouTube station, so it's available for public information.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yeah,
What do you think?
thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Well, thank you
Yes.
very much. I'll
Yeah.
talk to me later on about when you're ready to do it, and then we'll get it all set up. Okay.
Great.
Okay.
That's
Thank
great.
you, Carlin.
Yeah. So the thing about having a 6th precinct means that we then have a different median number that we have to look at, and it affects all of the precinct lines. So it would affect where the precinct lines cross over the redistricting lines, is what I'm saying. If we could just take precincts 4 and 3 and try to divide them differently. Really, if we didn't have the redistricting, it would just change this entirely. So the one thing about the library is that it's not a town building, though we do have, the town library is there. It is actually owned by the Library Corporation, but it's still worth asking if it could be used as a polling location. I'm just thinking of where, if they have a meeting, well, in the renovated library, they do have meeting space, don't they? But that wouldn't be available. That wouldn't be ready before
Not ready.
February.
And Kari, may I ask a question?
You're the chair. You can ask whatever you want.
We ruled out, I think, at one point when we were meeting at Church Street, that there's any viable place over there as a third voting location.
Yes.
In Concord.
Yeah, there isn't that.
There
That
isn't.
lower level is their only meeting space at this point in that building.
Right. That's not accessible.
And there
for-
isn't a good flow into that space.
No, in or out, or
Yeah.
elevators and staircases.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, the townhouse, having the townhouse in use would mean it's going to affect traffic, but we use the townhouse for voting
mhm.
for the presidential election, and we've certainly used it for early voting. So if we needed an extra police detail to manage traffic, and mark the front spaces all for voter parking, it's an option, possibly. So I don't know, I think the select board will want a recommendation for the map and also for polling locations. It is only Tuesday. We could meet again on Thursday and talk about polling locations, but we do need to, get to a decision. So as far as the map, are there other comments or questions or concerns about that?
Thank you for letting me complain. I'm going to sign off. This was
Thank you for
eye-opening, and I
participating.
will talk to my neighbors who have a lot of the same questions I do. I understand more now.
Thank
And
you.
good
Thank you.
luck. You've got an interesting puzzle.
Yes, thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thanks a lot.
So I would make a motion that we recommend the map as drawn. This is the latest rendition, and I will post, well, this version of the map is available online, and the map, if I'm going to try to share the next screen that Jill provided me with, which, let me see if I can do that. So this then is the new proposed map. So I make a motion that we recommend this map to the select board for adoption as the new precinct map, along with the physical description and the the block report, precinct block report.
I second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Wendy,
Aye.
Anne,
Aye.
Connie,
Aye.
and Kari, aye. Thank you. And as far as polling locations, do we want to change? Do we want to change that recommendation? Right now we have precinct 5 voting at, well, let me share again. So we have precinct 5 voting at Hunt Gym,
Mhm.
precinct 4 voting, well, let's hold off on 4. Precinct 5 voting at Hunt Gym, precinct 1 voting at Kais Road, precincts 2 and 3 voting at the Harvey Wheeler Community Center. And then precinct 4 voting somewhere in the center.
Yeah. That might make a difference for the people as far down in Canantum touching the Sudbury line there.
Yeah. You know, on this map, it doesn't look that far, but it is when you're already driving past the other polling locations. So should we leave it open, or should we just choose the townhouse, which we know is a building that can be made available? Or should we leave it open and then I'll see if I can speak to the library?
I think that might be a good idea to leave it open and
Okay,
see
so
if we have any other options. And would Ripley just be pulled away if they agree to that?
well, I think Ripley would be a backup. So if
Backup.
we had to evacuate a polling location, then we would have another location in town that could be quickly set up.
True. Okay, very good.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
So we'll leave that where it is, and then shall I post a registrars meeting once I find out when we're on? And then we can make a recommendation at their meeting, or we can meet a little before. It would be Henry, what do you recommend that we do before the select board meeting? Should we?
I think it probably would be good if you made had your final recommendation in hand, or at least what you thought was going to be your final recommendation in hand, rather than kind of be trying to arrive at your final decision concurrently with the select board meeting.
Okay.
I think you were suggesting that you have your final meeting on this matter concurrently with the select board meeting on Monday, the 22nd.
Yeah, but that doesn't sound like it's a good idea, because
I think that
we don't want to interrupt your meeting.
Well, it's not just that. I mean, it's just that it's confusing enough without having like a multitude of opinions on it.
Yeah.
So I think a decision has to be made, and I guess the select board is going to have to take the heat on it, whatever it is. And I think you've done a great job with what you've got to work with, and I think the board is going to. I hope the board will select you, will support you in the decision you make.
Okay, thank you. So are we ready to vote now, or should we have a meeting in either Thursday or Friday of this week? And I'll do a little digging and see what we can do.
Let's keep looking.
Okay. So we'll keep looking, and then I will send an email out to see when people are available, either Thursday after 2:32 or Friday or Monday, earlier in the day?
Okay, I do prefer Monday earlier in the day simply because I'm on the road. But if it doesn't work for everybody, I'm happy to fit it in on Thursday or Friday.
Okay, and all right, how about Wendy, you and Connie? Do you have feelings about Monday availability?
I think Monday's fine and Thursday are good. Friday afternoon, I have something booked, so.
Okay. And
Yeah,
Con-
I'm open.
Okay, so then let's look at Monday, if that works for
Great.
Anne.
Great,
And
very grateful. Thank you.
okay, and so I'll just send an email about Monday, and then we'll nail down a time, and I'll share the agenda, and then we'll have a final vote, and that gives a little more time, which I appreciate too, so we can,
Okay.
try to
Good,
nail
good.
down the polling locations.
Good. So
Great.
you'll have a little more information for us on that at that time as well. That'll be great.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you again.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for calling in, Anne. It's
Thank you, Anne.
appreciated. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
Are
right.
there any other questions before we adjourn?
Nope.
No.
Henry? Any questions before we adjourn?
You're gonna do it on Monday, but we don't have a time yet.
No, I mean, we can try to nail down a time now if that works, if that's easier.
At least it gets it done.
Yep, that's true. Okay. So let me just stop sharing so I can look at my calendar. So is everyone prepared to do that now? Can we look at our
Yeah.
calendars and just decide on a time? Okay, so that is November 22nd, and I'm open, so whatever you want. So we can do it in the morning or afternoon, the early afternoon? Midday?
My whole day. And so.
Yeah, I'm set for all day. So
All
2
right,
o'clock. It's 2 o'clock. Good because that's when we often meet.
does 2
Henry?
o'clock work? Henry, does 2 o'clock work for you?
Yes, yes. I
Good.
mean, you don't really, I don't think you need me, but, and I think you should pick a time that's convenient for the members of the board, but
Yeah.
it looks like 2 o'clock is open for me. But
Okay.
but all morning is also open for me.
All right, so 2 o'clock then? Is that,
Great.
okay. All
Thank you.
right, so 2 o'clock Monday, I'll get an agenda
All right,
to you and see you then.
all right.
All
There's
right.
no objection. We will now adjourn the meeting.
None. Yes.
Okay,
All right,
all in favor, Wendy,
yes.
Connie,
Aye.
Anne,
Yes.
and Kari, yes. All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you.
see you soon. Bye.
Right. Bye.
Bye.